Alright guys, so what I've got today is the V-Control USB follow focus controller from Aputure. This retails for about $189 and it provides a USB port plug-in to your camera to control the focus points, rack focus, start-stop recording, along with some other features on your camera. At $189, it's about half the price of some of the other USB controllers on the market, making it seem like a pretty good bargain. Let's take a closer look at the V-Control USB follow focus controller and see how well it works. Included in the kit is this very nice leather form-fitting case, the V-Controller unit itself, a USB cable, and two different methods for mounting your V-Controller to a 15mm rig. This one's a single mount and this one's a double mount. If you look on the back, they also included a nice metal '20 hole for adapting, and they give you access to the battery compartment to change the batteries out, unlike some of the other more expensive units on the market. Taking a closer look at the V-Control unit, you'll notice that there's a USB port on the top as well as on the side here. So if for some reason mounting requires that this area gets covered up, you'll still have access to a USB port on the side of the unit. You'll also notice that there is a switch right here. This is to go from stills mode to video mode. Anything that's the color of the word video here, this gold color, is what is active when you're using the controller in video mode. When you go to stills, anything that's labeled with white is what will be active when you are in stills mode, making it a lot easier to figure out what's going on with the controller and how it's set up. This is also a double press button. Half press is for focusing and full press is for starting and stopping recording or capturing an image, just like on the camera, making it kind of convenient. You also have your little focusing wheel right here, as well as your stepping points and adjustments for aperture and exposure and ISO. This other feature here is really handy, and this is a little display that gives you the step size indicator for the focus wheel itself. That's really convenient because you can see what number works best with which lens and set it up accordingly. Even though the controller itself is made out of plastic, it feels pretty solid in my hand, and the unique shape makes it easier to hold onto and run the controls. Compare that to the original Akai USB follow focus, and you can see that this one, the buttons are really close to the focusing wheel, which makes them a little bit harder to get to, and it's not as thumb friendly. You flip it over and you'll see that on the Akai you had to use 2 screws in order to get to the battery compartment, whereas with the V-Controller you have the nice little battery access port. Both of them still have metal threads. Part of the expense of the original Akai follow focus units was the fact that it was made out of machined metal. While this is made out of plastic, I think a lot of people will be happier with the $189 price of the V-Controller versus the $400 price of the Akai USB follow focus. Not only does the V-Controller give you 3 different stepping sizes to choose from, if you hold that same button down and use the scroll wheel, you can adjust the speed of those steps from 1 to 9, making it handy to find that sweet spot that works best with each of the lenses you're using. Alright, for this test I have the Canon 7D connected to the V-Controller with the Canon 35mm f1.4 lens on the camera. I've got 3 or 4 different objects sitting out in front of the camera, so let's see how well the V-Controller pulls focus on those items. Right now I found that the step size that works best for this lens seems to be step size number 2. So let's start the recording by hitting the red button and let's pull some focus. Alright, testing the focus, we've got the Canon 7200 box in focus right now. Let's go ahead and move this out just a little bit. And now we have the 7200 lens in focus. And if we do a little bit more of a motion, you can see that that Christmas hat with the head and the little bag are now in focus. And then we can roll this all the way back until we see that, of course, again, the 70-200 box and lens next to it are again in focus. That moves pretty smooth at a step number of 2, and the motion looks fairly nice. As you can see, the V-Controller does a pretty good job of pulling focus on the 35mm f1.4 lens. It's really nice to be able to see the step size and kind of figure out what step size works best for the lens that you're using. Keep in mind that the quality of focus pulling with a device like this is dependent on the motor that's built into the lens. This is an L series lens, so it works nice and smooth. But if you have a cheap lens with a really loud motor, that loud motor will be heard while you're using the step controller on your camera. So keep that in mind if you want to use this as a follow focus on set. Using the V controller in stills mode, to change the ISO, just hold the ISO button down and use the scroll wheel here to scroll up or down your ISO setting. Pretty simple. Change your aperture size, just hold this down and you can roll this up or down, get it to wherever you want. And of course, to change your shutter speed, you can do the exact same thing. Roll that down to dark or all the way up to 60th. And then of course, if you want to move around your focus box, just click the arrows up and down. And you can see that the little focus box is moving around on the screen. That makes it pretty easy to set your focus point in live view mode. After spending some time with the V controller, I can safely say that it's got a lot of improvements over some of the earlier USB controllers. The 2 USB ports make mounting a lot easier for this because you don't have to worry about the cable sticking out of only one place. You can set it on the side if you want. The window that displays the step size is really handy for seeing where you're at with your follow focus controls and your lens. The stills and video switch is extremely handy because it sets the controller up to work specifically for stills and changes the functionality for video when you're just using it for video. The unit is made out of plastic, but at half the price of some of the other options on the market, I think a lot of people will be okay with the build versus the machined aluminum that some of the other ones are made out of. Those are $400. This is $189. So this is definitely a lot more attractive if you're on a budget. It's also nice that you can get to the battery compartment as opposed to getting tools out in order to change out the batteries on the unit. I will have a full write-up on the V controller over at DSLRfilmnoob.com along with links in the crotch bar below. As always, thanks for watching, and if you like this content, please subscribe.